What do you think makes a good dad?
I might say some conflicting stuff here.
That's all right.
I think understanding the importance of the mum. To me, what makes a great dad is understanding the child comes first. Not me, not my feelings, not my emotions. And that can mean sometimes that the mum may be in a better position to do something. The child may have a better time with the mum doing this, or the child may have a better time with me, but understanding the child comes before me, that is what makes, to me, a good dad, is knowing that the mum is just as important as me, but we're both there for the child.
Imagine being a single father, navigating life's challenges while nurturing the future. The Dad Project tells these stories of strength, sacrifice, and unbreakable bonds. In season 1, we dive into the voices of single fathers of colour, capturing their victories and their struggles. It's time to recognise their impact, break down the stigma, and celebrate the powerful truth of fatherhood. Join me, your host, Narup Juti, on this inspiring journey. Aaron, brother, thank you so much, man, for being part of this. I was actually recommended to you by a friend of mine. So I'd seen your Instagram page.
Yeah.
But when we came up with this idea for the Dad Project, it never quite clicked to speak to you about it. So then I went onto your Instagram, I started seeing your videos and started seeing the message that you're putting out, and it's obviously it's beautiful and it's positive. And I hit you up and I was like, dude, love for you to be part of this. And I was really grateful when you responded and said you would, because obviously you've been doing so much work in this, and this project is new for us, and we're trying to just do some good work and spread some positive vibes out there. So I just want to say thanks for being involved, man.
No, listen, as soon as you reached out, to me it was a no-brainer, especially when we shared stories and I could feel your energy. I'm an energy person. So to me, I could tell it was something you was passionate about. So that was enough for me to say, yeah, 100%.
Oh, thanks, bro. Tell me about your journey, man, about being a single dad. And what I really want to know is those early days of when you became a single dad and how that made you feel, those kind of inner feelings and emotions.
You know what, there's different parts to it. So I was raised by just my mum. So I grew up on an estate in Croydon, and it was me and my mum. But a bit deeper into the estate was my dad and his other family. So my dad had a daughter with his partner, stepped out on his partner, and I'm the result of him stepping out. But we all kind of grew up in the same estate. So my dad was I was kind of like the child that you need to forget about. Like, he doesn't really exist. So my dad would come and see me, but it was almost like you're sneaking around to see me. It's kind of like a secret. We left the estate when I was about 9. I remember my dad came to see me when I was 9. And I remember this, like he came, we went to KFC, got me chicken and chips, so I'm content as it is. And he's saying to me, sorry for my mistakes, it's gonna be different this time, I'm gonna make an effort. I didn't see him again until I was 16.
Wow.
So I met my eldest mum when I was about 20, 21, and we was only together for about a year. And unexpectedly got pregnant, Amari was born, but the relationship was never really as it should be. We was both young, so we broke up early. And I remember my initial feeling was, I never wanted this because I came from that. So I always knew that even if I wasn't with the mothers of my children, I would never do what my dad did, which was not bring my kids together. So yeah.
So you, from a young age, were dealing with this lack of a male role model or male figure in your life.
Yeah.
How did that make you feel, man? Like that sense of he's kind of sneaking to see you. I think that for you must have been giving you, must have created a sense of, am I not good enough for him to kind of want me? Why doesn't he want to kind of spend time with me? How did that affect you and how did that make you feel?
You know what it is? I always say, as a kid, you see through the eyes of a child, right? So you're just kind of, you're used to your surroundings. So I was just used to him not being there. As a man, when I reflect back, I realize certain things like trust issues. I struggle with, if someone gives me their word and then goes back on it, that I react probably 10 times worse than I should, because that's what my dad was doing. He was giving me promises and not keeping them. So I think as a child, I wasn't aware of the impact that it was having, but it was having an impact, and that affected me later on in life.
And now you've got one child you had with your girlfriend when you were 21.
Yeah.
You've got 2 other kids as well, right?
No, I've got 2 children. So I've got Amari, who's going to be 17 this year, and I've got Tyler, who's going to be 11 this year. But I'm with neither of the
Okay,
ones.
so what was the difference with your second child? How was the feeling of knowing that you're going to be a single dad and you're not going to be with a mum? How did you handle that whole process?
That again, for me, so we were together for a lot longer. Me and Tyler's mum were together for about 4 years. And again, unexpectedly fell pregnant, and we broke up again, similar pattern. So I reflect on myself. I'm like, okay, I'm the common denominator here. There's patterns of behavior that maybe I'm not addressing. But I remember with that, it was that feeling of, okay, I failed twice. I failed, what am I doing wrong? What am I not learning? My dad, okay, he's got 4 children from 2 different relationships, but he's with one of the women. So in my head, I was like, oh, I'm worse than him. That really messed me up.
And what's your relationship like with your kids now?
My relationship with my kids, to me, is amazing, because I think with me, what often happens is if you break up with the mothers of your children, sometimes you can start to question yourself, and you can start to be focused on what the woman's doing and if she's going to be with someone else. And I don't want anyone around my children. And that's in my early days with Amari's mum. That's very much how I was. I was insecure. I was very much focused on the woman rather than my role. As a grown man, my role is to be a dad. So I will put all into my children rather than stressing about not being with them. Let me try and give them as much of me as I can.
Yeah. And so what do you do? Like, I know Amari is 17, you said, so near enough an adult.
Yeah.
So it's probably your role in Amari's life is going to be very, very different.
Yeah.
Your younger child, how do you get involved? Like, how much time do you spend? What kind of stuff do you do? How do you make sure you're being the best single dad that you can?
So I always say this, right? So I've got a schedule with him. So my schedule with him is every other weekend, right? But that's the least I'm going to see him, not the most. And I think sometimes in co-parenting, you have a schedule with your child and it might be every weekend or every other weekend or 50-50, and people stick to that as if that's the maximum I can see my child. No, all that means is Tyler knows this is when he's coming to dad's, because on the other weekend, he's now got a stepdad. So the stepdad's daughter comes to the house. So I understand that, okay, you've got family time on one weekend and then you've got family time with me on another weekend. But I'll collect him from school. We speak pretty much every day. He knows I'm there. And for example, this weekend, it's not my scheduled time with him, but I've got stuff planned. So I'm always looking for stuff for us to do. My weekend will always be the least I'm gonna see him, not the maximum.
So what's interesting about your story is none of the other dads we spoke to have a stepdad in the picture.
Yeah.
And I think that is something that most dads will think about. At some point, there's going to be another man involved, right? And I've got to know how to navigate this, especially if you've got a daughter. I think there's probably some differences with when you've got a daughter too, because you're thinking, okay, how is he going to be? You know, I don't know his background. It's natural to just be concerned.
Of course.
How did you manage that, man? How did you handle that initial period? Because you can give advice that other dads haven't. I
think, like I said, there was a difference, right? So with Amari's mum, I wanted to know everything. Tell me who you're seeing, where you're going, doing this, doing that. It done me no good. It just almost made her become more defensive and shut off completely. I think the best thing that I did is trust my son's mum. Like, I think that there's so much power in that, understanding that she wants the best for, like, Tyler's mum wants the best for Tyler. And I know she's not gonna bring just anyone around Tyler. I know some men won't have that much confidence in the mum. But the moment I realized that no matter what she does, no matter what another man does, that will never change how I am. And if I focus on me being the best that I can be, that's all that matters. What we often do is we get so worried about what could happen, we take our eyes off the child. We're no longer being as active or as energized or as fun or great as a dad as we was, because we're focused on what's going on over here. The moment I locked into my child, I didn't really care what was happening.
That's interesting, man. It's like, I guess a lot of the time dads are holding on to memories they had with their ex and thinking, I don't want no one else to come in and have what I had with her, but it's only natural.
Yep.
And I always think that, you know, having a amicable, healthy relationship with the ex is important, because it's only the child that's going to hurt.
Yep.
Like Amit has a famous saying they love to say, when two elephants fight, it's the ground that gets the damage, right?
Yeah.
So that's what happens to the child. So I always say, not saying become best friends with the ex, or, you know, but be amicable, where you can be in a position where saying your ex's name doesn't get you angry, or you don't get stressed, or you learn to trust and you believe, because then everyone is at peace. And I think ultimately being able to move forward, you need to have peace in your heart, because you can't move forward in life without peace, can you? Because if you're holding on to all that from the past, it's just like a big weight you're dragging with you, and you're never going to run and thrive and fly, like, you know, and have this beautiful, abundant future that we all want to have. Because if we have that abundance mindset, our child's going to have it, and hopefully there'll be happiness all round, right?
But this is why I always say, I think as men, therapy is important in some capacity, right? It doesn't mean you sit with, I don't know, you sit with someone and just release everything. There's different forms of therapy. But I think a lot of us as men aren't necessarily dealing with root issues. I heard this saying, we have to deal with the root, not the fruit. Sometimes we just deal with something and we think, okay, we've got rid of it, but now it grows back because we haven't addressed the root of it. And for me, I went to therapy. I went to therapy 2 years ago, had a number of sessions, and I didn't realize how much of a weight off my shoulders that felt. Because every one of us in this room, the older we get, we're going through life. Everyone's got a backpack on, right? And you're going through life and something happens to you, right? And I put a brick in that backpack, right? And you carry on, you just carry on, you deal with it. By the time you get to 30, 35, you've got 20 bricks. That's a lot of weight. If you haven't at some point stopped to unload some of that, you're gonna get weighed down. So I think therapy is how I look at it. Is therapy is allowing me to empty some of that and make the rest of the journey lighter.
Yeah, but that's a beautiful analogy, man. It's a beautiful way to think of it, because I don't think a lot of the time we realize how much weight we've got going on in our mind, how much we're holding, and how much those thoughts and that weight affects our body in a negative way, like releasing stress chemicals. Like, we're never meant to be in high stress states constantly, but a lot of us live in a high stress state constantly, leading to inflammation and, you know, all the bad side effects. You know, it's meant to be fight or flight. You have that at one moment and then it goes. It benefits you for a short period of time, but we're living with that constantly because we can't let go of the pain and the trauma and the bricks that we continue to carry.
So true, yeah.
But I've found that the single men that I've spoken to, who I feel are the most healed and have been the most positive, are also the most open. They're emotionally very open. And I relate to them immediately because I'm open. So now I've met a man and I'm big on energy too. So I know, okay, this man's open. I can chat to this man. But I'll immediately pick up when someone else is not open. And I realized that, okay, I can be cool with you, but we're never gonna get close because I'm vibrating on a different frequency. Because I've realized that being closed and being shut off, no one benefits. And I don't operate like that. So have you found in your experience that the fathers that you have dealt with and spoken to who've come out the other end have this more openness, are more emotionally available, emotionally abundant and matured? Is that something that you can relate to?
I think that's the first time I've really had that shown to me, and I love that. That's made me look at things a bit differently. I think for me personally, the reason why I am so open is because I know it helps people. And I've always said I want to use my platform, no matter how bad it makes me look, talking about my mistakes. I'm trying to show men that, look, I'm accountable for what happened, no one else. And I think that's the one thing I see with a lot of the men that I come into contact with, is they're able to hold accountability. And I think that's where we can grow. Now, if we're constantly saying it was her fault, it was his fault, it was their fault, we can't do anything with that. We're never changing. We're at the mercy of someone else's actions. So I think that's the one pattern that I've seen, is that a lot of the men that are in my circle as well are men that can hold themselves accountable.
That's really powerful, man. I recently was speaking to somebody and I was telling them about my journey and how open I am about my life. And I think I did have a couple of therapy sessions, but my therapy really came from speaking to friends and other men and just let's chatting, just being open about it and then listening. Sometimes all someone needs to do is listen and it's enough.
Yeah.
You've offloaded a brick, right? But this person said to me, Naroop, your vulnerabilities will be your strengths, right? And I think we've come from a time where men being vulnerable is a sign of weakness. I'm not going to show you that I was scared. I'm not going to show you that when I split up with my ex, I cried for days and I sat there and no one could console me. I'm not going to show you all these things, but guess what? That's not a weakness, that's a strength. And by only acknowledging them, being accountable for your actions, are you ever going to be able to move forward? And I think that's changed. And so I try to tell a lot of these dads, when I give them advice about dealing with being a single dad, is be open and be vulnerable and show who you are. One, because more people will be able to relate to you and give you help.
Yeah.
Because they know what you need, right? Two, you're going to feel lighter because you've offloaded some of this stuff. And three, you'll see a different reflection of you coming back because now you're receiving love. People are helping you. You're feeling better about yourself. Because usually it's just you're battling the man in the mirror, aren't you? You're looking at the man in the mirror and you're like, why are you unhappy, man? Like, what is wrong with you? But yet you haven't opened up. So then when you see a different version of you reflected, then you can start making that journey towards a better life. And I always say, every man and every person really should wake up and look at themselves in the mirror and be proud of that person, because that's the first person you're going to look at. And if you start your day off without being proud of yourself, then where's the rest of the day going to go?
That's so true. And love that person.
Yeah,
Don't just be
love
proud.
that person.
Because I think sometimes we connect proud with an achievement. I've done something, I'm proud of myself for doing that. I think just having love for yourself and everything you've been with, like the old version of you, the current version of you, the future version of you, having unconditional love, like, you know what, I've got you. I've actually got you. I think that's powerful. But going back to what you said as well, being open, we spoke about being open. For me, my whole platform, I'm aware that my children are gonna look at this platform when they're older. And I want them to see a man that was holding himself accountable, was open, because it will encourage them to do the same. And how can I expect my kids to come and talk to me if I don't have someone that I talk to? I'm not, it just doesn't make sense.
Lead by example.
Exactly.
So that leads us nicely onto your platform, Raising Boys to Men. Tell me a little bit about how it started, why you started it, and the kind of work that you're doing. Like, take me through the whole journey, because I love when someone can use something, their own lived experience, and turn that into something beautiful that can help so many people.
To be honest, it was originally so many different pages before it became this. I think it was a fitness page ages ago. And then I went on a friend's podcast and we was just having a conversation. It was the first podcast I've been on. And I started talking. I feel like something came over me and said, talk about your dad. And I don't know why, because I've never done it before. So the conversation got directed in that way, and I was just open and honest. And then the podcast went out and I had quite a few people comment or ask questions. So I was like, okay. So I think I did another video. And when I say to you, this is the most organic thing ever, it wasn't my intention, let me create this. It was being open and honest and seeing the feedback that got and that received. And then from there, okay, let me do this. Let me do this. I'm talking within 2.5 years, gone from 1,000 followers to 250,000.
It's unbelievable.
It's crazy.
When I saw that you've got 250,000 followers, immediately I knew, one, this guy's doing something right. Right? But then I looked at the content and it's just so authentic and real. You weren't like, say, okay, let me get this mad production and get best cameramen and best lighting. It was just real. It felt like I was sat there with you and you were just chatting to me, which is, I think, the way content is popular now. That kind of real, honest, genuine content is what people want to see. And you were probably ahead of the curve, and you started it, but it came natural to you. It wasn't like this was something you were trying to do for a gimmick and this will get me followers. It just felt natural to what you wanted to do, right?
It felt natural. And then I think within that, I then started having ideas, how can I help people? How can this conversation make someone else think?
Have you always wanted to help people?
I've always wanted to help young people.
Why?
Because I think I didn't really have a male figure. I mean, I had someone, my mum had a partner for maybe a year or so when I was in year 7 or 8, but he was abusive. So the examples I had of men were a father figure who is not involved, and another man that comes in the house and is abusive. I had no real positive examples around me. Obviously I had friends, fathers, and my barber and people like that, but within the home. So I just realized there's so many children probably going through that. So it was like this desire to want to help young people.
What is one of the most common questions that you might get asked by men? If they come in, I'm sure loads of men DM you and stuff. Is there a pattern that you feel that is a common concern, or young men are facing, or single dads?
I think when it comes to fathers, the common thing often relates to another man being around their child. I think my child's mum seeing someone, or she started to see someone, and she wants to introduce him, and it's this worry about how that impacts the man. And I think I always, when I speak to those men, I say, okay, say she does introduce, what does it change between you and your son or daughter? Nothing. Okay, say they do get married, what does it change between you and your son or daughter? Nothing. When I focus their mind on that, you're the only one, unless the woman is being difficult and preventing you and putting boundaries in place so that you can't see your child, the only one that's in control of you and your child's relationship is you. And if I can get men to just realize that and find comfort in that, like, if you want to see your child, is the door open to do so? Yeah, go and see your child. But I think we can become so defensive and feel annoyed and irritated by the thought of maybe we wanted it a certain way and it's no longer that. We had a vision of how our family would look, it's broken down for whatever reason, and we struggle to let go of that. And now anything that comes in the way, we're almost defensive against, rather than accepting, this isn't the image that I had, but it can still be a beautiful image.
Yeah.
Let me do the best within this.
That's amazing, man. My sister-in-law said something to me when I first became a single dad, and she's spiritual and a yoga teacher. And she said, Naroop, let it go and let it flow. Like, you can't control that. So if your ex has now got another partner, there's literally nothing you can do. And if you do try to do something, you're probably going to get the police involved, and it's probably going to pull you further away.
Yeah.
So if you can't control it, just let it go. And there's so much in that trust, in giving that trust. And what I believe in personally, and I've changed since being a single dad, is you always vibrate at a certain frequency, right? So if you're trusting, you're vibrating out at a different frequency, which your partner can feel. Like, you can feel people's energy, bro. You can walk into a room and you know within 2 seconds if someone's off. You just don't know what it is. You're like, there's something off there, but it's just like, it's by magnets, maybe repelling. But if you've got that trust, I think you vibrate at a different frequency, and your partner can pick up on that. And I always say, treat your partner how you would want them to treat you. And I've lived by that for this whole time, right? And if I want her to be cool with me when I'm with another woman, I've got to be cool with her if she's with another man.
Exactly that.
Because otherwise, what's going to work? It's not going to work. You lead by example, and there's respect there. And you've got to maintain that respect, which is hard. I'm not saying it's easy. There's certain circumstances where people have been abusive, some stuff which people might feel is unforgivable.
Yeah.
But I think if you try to find a way to heal for the greater good of your family and your children, because you don't want it to keep going on for generations where they might see what they think a family should be like, and it can have negative patterns for them. I think that's very difficult, difficult for them to deal with. When I saw your platform and I saw the kind of work that you're doing, I was further inspired to do good through this? I was like, I had an idea, but then it kind of like made me feel like I can do so much more. And obviously we're photographers and filmmakers and we love raising awareness for topics. And I know I've always wanted to help people from a young age. There's something about me that's like, let me do good, let me share. I've got this desire to share. It's not financial.
It's authentic.
It's authentic. When you were young, did you think that you would be doing something like this when you were older? Where did you see your life going? What did you think you would be doing? And what do you think a younger version of yourself would think of who you are now?
I think when I was young, I don't know about anyone in this room, when I was young, I had no real idea. I didn't have someone that I looked to and thought, I love that. I wasn't even aware of what you could be. I always say this, like, I ask my children, what do you want to be when you're older? And then I remember, they probably don't know what they can be. They might feel like they could be a footballer or certain basic things that we see, but do they know about being an accountant? Do they know about being a CEO? So I had no idea what I wanted to be. I was quite lost, I think. And I've just I've always just, if I felt like I could do something, I've attempted it at least. So I think, I would never have thought I'd be here. Even 5 years ago, I would never have thought I'd be here.
But do you ever reflect and look back and think, man, if all those things hadn't happened, I wouldn't be doing this, and maybe this is always my calling?
It's, especially with a platform like this platform could not have existed if my relationships worked out, Like if either of those relationships worked out, it wouldn't have existed. So I've been with the mothers of my children, but then since that, I've been in relationships that haven't worked out. And again, this is me going into my 30s, mid 30s. I think it was my last relationship which ended just before the platform started to take off. And I'll never speak publicly down on that person, but that person had a child, 2 children with someone, and I didn't think there was boundaries within their relationship.
Interesting.
And I got quite hurt within that. And I think, again, that just pushed me to create certain content, and the platform went. But I always say, if one door doesn't close, the other won't open. And some of us are trying to hold on to, we're trying to open 2 doors at once. The moment you let go of one, like no matter how much I cared for that person, if I had stayed within that relationship, this would never have happened.
So I've asked every dad the same question, and you probably get asked a lot. If a dad came to you and said, look, man, I'm just about to break up with my missus, or I've just broken up with my ex, I'm a single dad, I can't deal with this, the pain of one, losing the partner or having a divorce, and now realizing that I'm not actually going to see my child as much. I'm struggling, I've got anxiety, I've got depression, what things do you say to a dad like that? What's your go-to advice in terms of, look, giving them hope, coping mechanisms? What kind of stuff do you say to fathers like this?
I think first is, the hardest part is acceptance. I think so many of us, again, I think we spoke earlier, I said depression lies in the past, anxiety lies within the future. What are we doing right now? And knowing that when we're feeling anxious, angry, annoyed, frustrated, we can make reactional decisions within those moments that impact us further down the line. So I think we have to be mindful of how we're reacting, right? If someone does something to you, you're instantly, I react back, damn, your whole life could change based on a reaction. So it's kind of like taking time for yourself. Even if you're living in the home and you're still there, but you know this relationship isn't working out, there's nothing wrong in taking a step back in order to just compose yourself and get yourself together. That may be going to a friend's house, maybe going to a family member's house, collecting yourself, getting yourself together before you make any decisions. So I think accepting what's happening and knowing that I might need to move myself out of this situation to get my thoughts together. And the generic things, and I know I've said this before and people didn't like it, but I always say, make sure you're going to the gym. Make sure you're eating. Make sure you're maybe reading some positive things. What are you consuming? When you go on social media, is this having a negative impact on you? What you're watching on TV, what you're listening to, the people in your circle, are they negative, are they positive? I think you just have to assess the diet. Diet isn't just food, it's your environment, it's people, it's what you're consuming in any capacity. So I think focusing on those things. But even if things are going well, what are you doing? How are you looking after yourself? Because sometimes we just become so used to how things are because things are good, so we don't need to do these things. Or we do them and then get in a relationship and stop doing the things that benefited us because we're now in a good place. Always make sure you're working on yourself.
I think that's really good advice. And I always say similar stuff because I think when you ask some people, how do I deal with it? What's the best thing to do? They might give some of the stuff like get your legal stuff in order, make sure you get a fair split of the money, speak to a good lawyer. For me, that stuff can happen, right? You might have to give more money than you want, but guess what? You can make that money back. But if you disrespect yourself or if you go down a road that you can't come back from, that's done. Yeah. Or if you damage your health so much that you can't come back to where you were, your baseline, there's no amount of money that's going to fix that. So I'm almost like, just get your affairs in order. Yeah, you might have to pay an extra 10, 15 grand, right? But guess what? You can make that money back in your lifetime. But the time that you neglect yourself, the time that you do something bad, like you said, you do something now and it will cost you down the line, or something
irreversible,
or your kid sees you do something which they'll never forget and they associate you with. No amount of money is going to change that. So you're right. I said the same thing. I did that. I doubled down on my gym, reading. I didn't drink for a long time. So I'm like, if I get drunk, I could lose my conscious state of, thinking in a positive way. Yeah. I might send a wrong message. I might go and do something which is not right. So I didn't for ages until I felt I was balanced. Those kind of things I think are so important. But
what gave you, because how did you know to do those things?
My dad had told me from a young age to read certain books, Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, positive mental attitude books. He'd tell me all the time. And then my dad is amazing. He's always been my hero. I've always said to everyone, my dad's my first mentor and my hero.
Love that.
So he said to me something which was so powerful. I told him about my situation. I said, Dad, I'm going to get a divorce. The first words he said to me was, Naroop, how you respond to this will define who you are as a man. That was the first words. No, don't worry, son. How you respond to this will define who you are as a man. And that's all he had to say. And I was like, okay, I've got to treat this like a man. And that doesn't mean, getting angry. Respect, calm, cool. His job's done now, isn't it? We mean you can no longer be together. That's fine. I'm gonna be proud of myself. And anyone that speaks to me, they're like, Naroop, I don't know how you did it, man. But I'm like, I just hold myself to high self-esteem. I've just got high self-worth. It's not arrogance. It's like, I am who I am. I've got respect for myself. And I want to conduct myself in a way that I think is inspirational to others. And I want my daughter to be able to look at me and think, that's a man. That's a man right there. And she'll hold up any other men to her life. She'll hold up to my standard.
Exactly.
Whether she realize or not, she's going to make some mistakes. She'll be young. That's part of life. I can accept that. But when the time comes, she'll remember what dad I did, and this is what dad I was like. So that is what's helped me. And maybe I should give my dad a bit more credit. I always do tell him, my parents, that without you, I couldn't get through this, man. Like in Indian culture is just, family, extended family. Like I leaned on them, man. I was like, you guys got to help me. Mum and dad both said, look,
it's a team effort, isn't it?
Yeah, they're like, we got you, man. Don't worry, we got you. Which was just you need that comfort too. You need that comfort. So obviously this project, the Single Dads project, Single Dad of Color specifically, is about the stigma that if you're a single dad of color, that in some way you might not put in as much, or
you've done something wrong.
You've done something wrong. Because I remember when I told someone for the first time that I'm getting a divorce, they were like, "What you done, bro?"
Yeah.
I'm like, "I didn't do that. It wasn't me."
Yeah.
But so have you faced that, or have you experienced the same thing, that just because you're of color, that people might think you're not a good dad or the best dad, or you're neglectful, or you put yourself first, or you don't care much about the kids? Because obviously we're trying to shatter that stigma and say, no, majority of the time dads want to be amazing dads. Like we're one half of the of the child's life. Have you faced that?
I think not in my personal life. On social media, putting myself out in the way I do, there's a lot of comments like, what did he do? He must have done this. It's so much negative, and that used to consume me because I could literally see 100 positive comments. That one negative is now embedded in me, and I feel I have to change their view. So I used to find myself writing out extensive messages trying to argue with someone who could just be a bot. They might not even exist. And I think I had to be comfortable with knowing it. Again, I know what type of dad I am, and my kids know what type of dad I am. What anyone else thinks is irrelevant. Yeah, it might bruise my ego. I might not like the fact that other people have a negative opinion on me, but it really doesn't change me.
What do you think makes a good dad? Because there's certain things which people might think, oh, I'm a good dad. What do you think makes a good father? Male to a daughter or a son?
I might say some conflicting stuff here.
That's all right.
I think understanding the importance of the mum.
Wow. I wasn't expecting that.
I
Okay.
know. I think we don't have to like that person. We might not even speak to them. They may, I don't know, not be the best mother, but understanding that that woman plays a massive role, whether it's gonna have a negative impact or a positive impact, that other person, ideally, if you can, you want to be a team, right? I think the most stupidest thing I see within football matches is when you see players on the same team arguing. Yeah, or they're arguing over the penalty. I saw it the other day, Chelsea players were arguing over who's gonna take the penalty. And I'm thinking, you're on national TV, you're meant to be on the same team and you're arguing rather than thinking what's gonna benefit the team. And I think, to me, what makes a great dad is understanding the child comes first. Not me, not my feelings, not my emotions. And that can mean sometimes that the mum may be in a better position to do something. The child may have a better time with the mum doing this, or the child may have a better time with me, but understanding the child comes before me, that is what makes, to me, a good dad, is knowing that the mum is just as important as me, but we're both there for the child.
And so many people struggle from that, bro. That's probably the number one thing that people struggle from, is this hold of resentment. They can eat them up when it can be 10, 15 years down the line. They still talk foul of the other partner, and the kid suffers because the kid loves them both. And that's horrible.
That's the thing. The person that you dislike is loved by your child.
What do you tell to men who are in a relationship, a new relationship now, and their partner doesn't like that they are maintaining a healthy, amicable relationship with the mother of their child?
There should always be boundaries in place within co-parenting relationships. But if your co-parenting relationship needs to now change because either one of you are with someone, your relationship probably shouldn't have been like that in the first place. Something, you was probably a bit too close, or you was getting a bit too comfortable. So now that you're with someone, you realize, okay, I can't come around at this time. And you probably shouldn't have been doing that in the first place. But if a partner comes in and tries to break what is a relatively respectable co-parenting relationship, I personally wouldn't want that person as a partner.
That's interesting. That's a really interesting way of looking at it. And you're right, it's all about boundaries. It's all about boundaries. Do you think there is a lack of positive male role models for young men? Because I was reading this book and it talks about how men have changed over the years, because pre-industrial revolution, the boys would go to the farm or work the land with the dads and the uncles and the cousins and the brothers. So they'd have their male time and be raised by these men, then come back and have their family time. And then when the Industrial Revolution happened and the dad started going out to work, the mother started raising the child a lot more. And then when the dad came back from work, he'd be tired or he'd want to have a little drink. So they never got that time to bond with the father like they could have done. They didn't get that time to really understand what it meant to be a man. And in some ways, they depended on the mother to raise them. And there's certain things that a dad teaches a kid, and there's certain things a mum teaches a kid, for both a daughter and a son. And that, according to this book, that has changed how men act. And sometimes men lack that positive role model, either because they haven't got a dad, or their dad just wasn't present enough in their life to teach them some of the things that are probably important to them later in life. Do you feel that is the case, or is that something you don't agree on?
I don't think there's a lack of male role models. I think there's an increase in negative ones, because all of our children at some young age are going to have access to social media, right? And I always say, if even for women where there isn't a father around, you need to do your best to get your child in front of a positive male figure, because they're going to gravitate towards someone. Yeah, a girl will, a guy will. They're going to gravitate towards some sort of male, whether that's Andrew Tate or some sort of social media follower. So I don't think, I think children have more males to look at now than they did. I remember when I was growing up, the only people that I used to look up to, because I didn't have my dad around, was like TV shows like My Wife and Kids. My Wife and Kids, there was like certain hip hop stars or whatever, but they were all American based. I didn't actually have, now you can pick up your phone and there's someone like within your area that's doing something that you could say, oh, I want to be like that. So I think we need to be careful who our children are gravitating towards. And that's why we as men, as fathers, need to make sure we're the man that our children are looking to. We're the man that our children are speaking to and having certain conversations with, rather than it being someone else.
So what do you think, on your platform, you're all about raising boys to men, what is the most popular content, would you say? What kind of messages, what kind of information that you share tends to really hit?
The most popular content is always to do with finances.
Interesting.
Yeah, anything child maintenance related. It's a taboo topic. People don't like talking about it. So when I was quite open, I had conversations with my eldest where I spoke to him about child maintenance, because from his point of view, he wasn't aware of, and again, I wasn't speaking to him at the age of 10. He was 14, 15, we're having these conversations. He's not aware of what goes on behind the scenes. So he doesn't know I'm giving his mum money per month and that goes towards his upbringing. So I felt that it was important to have those kind of conversations. I think anything to do with finances, because again, as men, we do try and control as much as we can. We want to control situations. And the one thing we probably can control is finances. I'm not going to give you as much, or this has happened, I don't think I should, or so anything to do with finances like goes viral quite quickly.
I guess it was all down to how you are as a man as well. Because for me, I look at the financial stuff as, all right, I've got to give the money, and I'm more about emotion, heart, peace of mind, state of mind.
So you release the
yeah.
You just release.
Like,
yeah.
Well, I've got to give it.
Yep.
I'm more about, I just want peace, man. It's like, I've got so much I'm doing in my life I want to do. If I'm not in that peaceful state, and if I'm quibbling over a bit of money here, then how am I ever going to build the empires I'm building if I'm worried about giving you an extra £20 every month?
But your mindset isn't normal.
But
it's a beautiful mindset, but
it's not. Yeah,
it's not the standard.
It's been amazing chatting to you today. I'm so glad we were able to have an open, honest conversation. This feels like, even though we've got cameras here, it doesn't feel like that, because this is, for me, I felt like this, everything happens for a reason. I'm a big believer in fate. I'm a big believer in loving your fate, that whatever has happened to you had to happen. And the more you try to ask and question, that there's no solution to it. There's nothing you can change about what has happened to you now. It's only about, okay, I'm here now. What am I going to do with this? And loving that this journey was all meant for you. And as difficult as it was, you probably have come out stronger. I know I've come out stronger. I'm a totally different man from before. So listening to your journey and seeing you is honestly a true inspiration. So I think everyone should try to leave their mark on people in a positive way. And one of the best ways to do it is just to be open and vulnerable and share and teach. Because we're all teachers really in life. We all teach you. Everyone learns something every single. I've learned something speaking to all the dads, and and it was my idea to chat to bring them all together. But to know that I can learn from them and that you don't know it all, I think is a really humbling and a beautiful position to be in. So I just want to say thank you for coming down today, bro. We're gonna take some portraits of you now. Be part of the project, but having you here, man, and it has been really a big learning for me, and I think everyone's going to benefit from listening to this conversation.
Listen,
so thank you, brother.
On behalf of every dad that's probably been here, like, thank you for putting this together. You're giving us a voice, and yeah, I know this is going to do well. So yeah, big up yourself.